Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, March 31st. I am John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, my nightly show talking about the latest news from Ukraine, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. I'm based in Washington, D.C. And as always, we are going to wait about 2 or 3 minutes now, once we've launched, for TikTok and YouTube and the rest to give all the notifications they give for folks to join us. So hang on a second. Let me get live on TikTok here and introduce yourselves while we're waiting. And then, like I said, about 2 or 3 minutes, we will officially start. I'd just like to give a little bit of time for folks to join. Boop, there we go. TikTok. Excellent. Anyway, long week. I've got to do my taxes. Well, do more of my taxes this weekend. I may or may not finish them this weekend. I've got a couple weeks, but still not fun to do. Anyway. So what's going on, guys? Introduce yourselves, if you would. Anybody who's new, we wait about 2 minutes for folks to join us from TikTok and YouTube and everything else to get the notification. Well, Chicago's safe so far. Yeah, bad tornado weather heading for Chicago right now. So, yeah, I know. So, not good. But anyway, taxes are annoying living off of social media. Yes. Yes. That's very funny. Oh, well, it was bad enough just working for yourself, because when you work for yourself, the money's coming in from everywhere. I one year had 20 different sources of income I had to document. It was not fun. And for social media, I'm going through like your guys' donations. The money I send to Vlad is a deduction. It's never ending. I mean, the auction money is income. My Patreon is income. My TikTok gifts are income. And TikTok. We're just waiting for enough folks to arrive and then I'll start the show. We're talking about doing taxes. TikTok is fun because TikTok has you can give gifts. TikTok also gives money each month based on the number of views you get, which isn't much. You can also give money on TikTok via the tip button, and each of those is a different stream that TikTok counts differently. So it's, but they only give you paperwork on 2 of the streams, not the third. It is living hell. Yes, working for yourself and doing taxes is a real joy. So I got little note cards to help me keep track of all the different, deductions and income and you name it. All right, guys, I think we got enough folks here. Welcome. I am John Aravosis. I'm happy to have you guys join me tonight. This is the Aravosis Report, my nightly show that I do covering the war in Ukraine. The way it works is a quick reminder. I've got you guys over here on my right. I've got you guys over here on my left. TikTok is on my iPad. YouTube and everybody else are on my computer, and that's why you will see me going back and forth, because I'm talking to both of you. Oh, hey, Finland. Welcome to NATO. Good to see you. Or almost. I've got a little story on sort of telling you guys where things are with Finland joining NATO, possible timeline. But so the way the show works, I will talk about the first half of the show about the latest news from Ukraine. Second half of the show, I will take your questions. On TikTok, you can submit questions via the Q&A link that is in my profile. On YouTube, you can find the questions, just the comment box at the bottom of the screen. If you want to be so generous, I would love super chat and super stickers, because they help me pay my bills. I do this full time. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out, so now over a year. And I quite literally pay my bills with your guys' gifts. And it helps me keep doing the show. So thank you for that. And thank you right there. Great CFI for the dancing cactus. And on TikTok, of course, the gifts, you guys know how to do the gifts. Those are also very welcome. I always forget to mention something. Actually, I'll tell this. Thank you, Mr. T, for the mods to mention occasionally on TikTok too. I found out about several months ago from an inside source that you actually get a better exchange rate buying those coins or whatever it is you need to buy the gifts. Buy them on your computer logged into TikTok, and you'll get a better exchange than you will buying the coins themselves on your phone. I think that's the way it works. And then on your phone, you can purchase the gift, but you've already bought the coins that you've got to buy. And anyway, just so you know, on TikTok, it's a way of saving money. Anyway, guys, so let's dive in. I think I gave you the spiel and everything. Yeah, so keep the gifts coming on TikTok, keep the super chats, and let's start. So it is day 400 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation. I do have my coffee talk tomorrow as well. The coffee talk every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, U.S. I just do a hangout here on TikTok and on my Discord for the paying subscribers, just as an extra thank you for them. The rest of the week is obviously free. But if you are a paid TikTok subscriber or you are a paid Discord subscriber, $5 and up, please come by tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, US. Yes, there's exchange rates on TikTok. You can actually arbitrage TikTok, believe it or not. Yes, you can arbitrage by going and buying those gold or coins or whatever they are on your computer rather than your phone. I kid you not. It's crazy. Try it out, though. I've been told this by people who work with TikTok and others that that's the way it works. It's kind of funky, but it can help you, anybody, any coins you buy, any creators. And then I think you can buy the gifts here, which is fine. Oh, wow. Thank you, Bear Down. Somebody already gave me a Patreon pledge. I didn't even pitch Patreon yet. That was sweet of you. Thank you for that. And thank you for the gifts, Alex. So let me dive right in. Thank you, Mishka, Mishka for the gift there for the owl. And Ducky. So today is the 1-year anniversary of Ukraine recapturing Bucha. Bucha, I didn't Google, but I remember more or less. I want to say Bucha is, help me out, Ukrainians in the audience. Bucha, I remember being kind of up here, like almost a Kyiv suburb to the northwest. Help me if I'm totally crazy, but I didn't look on. I'm remembering this from a year ago, but I think it's more or less up here. And Bucha is the Ukrainian town where I would say the first. Okay, thank you, Yeva. I would say the first big war crime was discovered. I mean, obviously, there's tons of war crimes the Russians did, but this was the one where the Ukrainians came to town, the military, the media was with them, the foreign media. I think Agence France Presse was one of the first ones to come in. So it wasn't just the Ukrainian media claiming this, right? Thank you, Ellen. And they found, remember the main street of the town was just this little regular street of like civilian houses and stuff. And there were 20 dead civilians on the street. And remember, like the cars were just stopped dead in the street. One man was still on his bicycle on the ground sideways, dead. I mean, they just murdered civilians in cold blood. We then saw videos coming out of this. There was a drone video of the guy on the bike getting killed. I mean, just horrific, absolutely horrific. Really, it's the first massively documented, and they even documented it with satellite photos because the Russians tried to pretend like they didn't really do it. It was the Ukrainians. So the New York Times was able to get satellite photos showing when the bodies showed up on the street. They got the satellite photos of the dead bodies and showing how it happened over a period that the Russians were occupying. So there was no way the Ukrainians could have done it, right? And they didn't. And they were claiming, first they were claiming the Ukrainians killed them. Then they claimed they were actors or something, right? Well, these bodies all showed up. It was around, I want to say the Russians controlled Bucha for almost all of March of last year, okay? And the bodies showed up, God, maybe the 13th of the month, something like that. But they showed up in the middle of the Russian occupation. So clearly the only people who could have done this were Russians. They weren't fake. They weren't pretending. And they laid on the ground until the Ukrainians recaptured it March 30th. So like these people didn't just lay on the ground for 2 weeks, right? And they were pretending to be dead. Anyway, you get it. So that's the 1-year anniversary today. Let's talk about Finland joining NATO now, since they joined NATO because of Russia and the Ukrainian invasion. Really interesting. I was curious last night. So you know that Turkey finally agreed for Finland to join NATO. They're still playing games with Sweden, but they agreed to to Finland. The Hungarians are playing the same cutesy little game that the Turks are playing. Hungary's doing a little different. Turkey's doing it because Erdogan, the dictator there, is trying to win re-election. I mean, re-election, huh? Actually, I should say, interestingly enough, he's a wannabe dictator, but he actually is in danger in the election. So, Turkey is not a dictatorship yet. This guy has been pushing back democracy for years and is trying to turn it into a dictatorship, but it isn't yet. But anyway, Erdogan is trying to win re-election, so he's been going nuts on Finland and Sweden not joining NATO to try to help his election. The Hungarians, frankly, the Hungarian government is in Putin's pocket. It's run by another wannabe dictator named Viktor Orban. He's a far-right anti-democratic, meaning anti-democracy lunatic who's very pro-Putin. He's doing it for Putin, basically. In any case, Finland gets approved. And now the way it works, because I was careful, thank you for the gift there. I just saw the origami. Who was that? Sorry. The paper crane. Oh, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. So Finland, I was looking and trying to figure out, so what's the timeline for when Finland actually joins NATO? Here's what I've got. It's kind of interesting. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that Finland would be joining in the coming days, right? And first people were taking that as meaning within days. And then I read it again and went, in the coming days does not mean within days. It means sometime soon, right? So thank you, Mr. T. It actually looks like Finland probably won't join NATO until NATO's July 11th meeting in Vilnius, Lithuania. Listen to this. So here's what still has to happen, okay? Who is that? Richard with the crown, thank you. Erdogan in Turkey still has to approve the Turkish parliament's ratification. Then it has to be published in the official Gazette of Turkey. Then Hungary and Turkey need to send their ratification documents to the US government. Then Stoltenberg has to invite them to join NATO. At this point, it'll only be Finland. Then Finland will deliver its instruments of accession, a document signed by its foreign minister, to the US government. When that document reaches the State Department, Finland officially becomes a NATO member. So there's a lot of steps there. Thank you, Dankeschön. There's a lot of steps there of what has to happen next. But a lot of them are things that can happen quickly. Some of it, unfortunately, is still contingent on Turkey. So Erdogan can actually still play games, which is not good with this. But it looks, my guess is it's possible that we are waiting. Honestly, I don't think we should wait. I would say at this point, let Finland in anyway. It's possible we're waiting until July to maybe put extra pressure on Turkey. Now, Hungary couldn't care less, but to put pressure on Turkey by saying, no, we've accepted them, but we're not going to have the formal acceptance until the July meeting because we're waiting for Sweden. And somehow it puts pressure on Erdogan. I'm not convinced it really does, but nonetheless, that's kind of where things stand with Finland. Now, the New York Times had a separate article this was Reuters that I got the information I just told you from. New York Times had a really interesting article as well about Finland joining NATO that talked about Finland's military and why it's so good and why it's so interesting for NATO. And I wanted to give you a little background on that because it was very interesting actually. Because at first, listen, you'll see what I mean. Hang on. So the article starts by noting that Finland's, listen to this. You hear this and you go, how does this benefit us? Finland's active duty military in Finland's defense forces is a modest 23,000 troops. 23,000, okay? I mean, the U.S., what does the U.S. got? 1.5 million something? I'm guessing. How many? Well, and then you add in National Guard. We might even have 2 or 3 million, I think, total when you add everybody together. Ukraine's got 1 million, I think. I mean, Russia's got 1 million plus. So 23,000 is nothing, but its wartime strength can grow quickly to 280,000 forces because of an extensive conscription system that can mobilize up to nearly 1 million men. So what Finland did, because for years, obviously, they've had to deal with the Soviet Union and now Russia being a hostile neighbor, they constantly kept up their national defense. They didn't keep that many troops not ready. Everybody's ready. They didn't keep that many troops active duty. But again, 23,000, whatever it said, but they had the ability to immediately pull up 280,000 and then get it up to 1 million, which is kind of amazing. Listen to this. So Finland's artillery forces, for instance, are the largest and best equipped in Western Europe. I did not know, with some 1,500 artillery weapons, including 700 howitzers, 700 heavy mortar, and 100 rocket launcher systems. Finland is also a major designer of icebreaker ships, which is really interesting because I was just reading the other day, I was reading the other day on how the U.S. has got, I think, the U.S. maybe has 2 icebreakers or something like that. And the Russians have like a whole fleet of them, right? Because Russia's playing games now trying to get the Arctic under its control. So Finland is a major designer of icebreaker ships. Finland will also play a significant role conducting maritime operations in the increasingly contested Arctic region. This was the last little point here, was the poll. I forgot about this. The polling numbers in Finland, how much Putin made this happen with Finland joining NATO. Listen to this. The poll numbers, let me tell you where the polls were after the invasion. Then I want you to guess where the polls were before. After Russia invaded Ukraine, nearly 80% of Finland's population expressed support for joining NATO. So Russia invades Ukraine, they poll the population, 80% support joining NATO. What percentage of Finland's population do you think supported joining NATO before the war, before Russia invaded? Just ask you guys, I know we're a couple seconds behind, but just type on your various screens because I'm curious, just for fun, try it out. Of course, I made it sound like it's so bad that you're going to guess a low number anyway, but okay, some of you are close. 20%. Only 20% of Finns supported joining NATO before the war. That blew my mind. I mean, I did not in a million years think that it could have been that few people. I mean, jumping from 20% to 80%? I mean, that's an insane number of jump. Oh, and Chris, thank you. Chris from the UK just pledged for Patreon as well. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So kind of amazing. I mean, it's oh, and the other thing I didn't mention, but the other reason Finland is so important is because Finland, I can pull it up on my phone and show you really quick. Finland shares like an 830 mile or so border with Russia, which is around 1,200 kilometers. And it will double the size of NATO's border with Russia. Oops, hang on, Finland. Come on, Finland, country in Europe. You see if now Google Maps sucks. That's not too bad. Google Maps sucks, but you can kind of see. So here's Europe from Greece all the way up to Finland and Sweden, okay? And then Russia's on the right. Look at Finland's border because you can see it in red. Look at how, north to south, how tall Finland is, and how if you were to lower it into Europe, it would put you from like the Baltic states almost all the way down to Greece, really, right? It's that huge. And all of that is border with Russia. There's some Norway thrown in there too, but on the east of it is all Russia. You guys can see. So east of it is, it's always a little less, let me try this. It's not really as in focus. Oh, there you go. It's in focus there. So you can see the red area of Finland and how if you were to move that south, it would take you from the Baltic states all the way down to Greece. So kind of amazing how big it is. That's another big reason why Finland is so important. Okay, quick sip of water. And so now I will do a quick Patreon pitch, even though I've already had two of you doing Patreon already. Thank you so much. Patreon is a really cool way of being able to help creators by basically contributing a certain amount of money per month. And then every month it gets renewed automatically. It could be $5 a month. It could be $10 a month. I've got one wonderful guy who does $100 a month. It's up to you, and only if you can afford it. Obviously, don't even think of it if you're stretched for money, because I will do these broadcasts anyway. But as I said, I do these full time. I do them for free, and I've been doing them since the war broke out. I am not independently wealthy, and nobody pays me to do this. I wish they did. Thank you, Dawn, for the hands there. But your guys' gifts quite literally make it possible for me to keep doing this, and I very much appreciate it. You're paying the bills. I mean, I think I'm breaking even finally, which is nice because I wasn't even breaking even before. But at least I'm breaking even, which is good. Or close to some nights. So this week was a little less, but still pretty good. In any case, so thank you for that. But Patreon, you can check it out at patreon.com/Aravosis. You guys can see it over there on YouTube. And for you guys, it is patreon.com/Aravosis, but you can find it in my profile. Go to my profile on TikTok, look at that Linktree link, and it will show you all my links, Patreon, Discord, you name it. Check it out. All right, Open, thank you for the little heart, the Mr. T, for the love you heart. All right, Wall Street Journal reporter. So a little update on the horrible kidnapping by Russia of a Wall Street Journal reporter yesterday. So as you probably know at this point, we've got a very cool TikTok gift. Oh, two cool TikTok gifts. Hang on. Donka Shane with the cool balloon and Flower Lady with the mirrors. Thank you. Or the mirror flowers. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So yesterday, Russia kidnaps a Wall Street Journal reporter. His name is Evan Gershkovich. He's an American, born in America. His parents were Soviet Jews, so they emigrated. They left the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was incredibly bigoted towards Jews. The Russians aren't much better, but so incredibly bigoted toward Jews, among others. And his parents fled the Soviet Union. He was born in America and was working or is working for the Wall Street Journal in Moscow. He goes east to Yekaterinburg, a city, and he's investigating. He does stories on defense and everything. He's actually, by the way, He's the guy, I didn't even realize this. He's the guy who wrote the story that I read at length to you guys 2 days ago when I was telling you all about the sanctions and how the sanctions were finally starting to make a dent in the Russian economy. That big segment I did, he wrote the story. I totally didn't realize he was the author of it. So, I mean, he's a big reporter. Well, goes to this city east of Moscow to do some reporting on defense industry, whatever. The Russians arrest him. They charge him with espionage, being a spy. They already bring him up on charges before a court yesterday. They don't tell his lawyer. And then, well, first they don't tell the lawyer. Then they don't let the lawyer in. They refuse to let his lawyer come to the hearing, right? So this guy isn't even given a lawyer. The espionage charges, I had written down here what the possibility is. It's something like 10 or 20 years in prison. I don't have the exact amount in front of me. Horrific number of years in prison this guy will be facing. And in Russia, you get convicted. Nobody, pretty much, I was reading this too today, practically nobody who is accused of espionage ever wins in Russia. You're always guilty, of course, because it's Russia. It's the Soviet, they're basically the Soviet Union. 20 years, that's okay. I thought it was 20 years. Yeah, a number of TikTokers are saying 20 years. And Russia will do it, and this guy won't get off. Now, let me read you a couple different things here. So the case will likely take 2 years. The Russians, by the way, love to have the trial go first because they want you guilty before they can trade you for somebody else, right? So 2 years, high security prison under complete isolation. Okay. So he's going to be basically isolated from everybody for 2 years. This was in, I think this was in the New York Times that I grabbed it. Shoot, I think it was the New York Times. I'm not remembering now. Ivan Pavlov, a Russian lawyer who defended Russian clients in a number of espionage and treason cases and who fled Russia in 2021, said, quote, "I doubt that the investigators will present any evidence at all at the trial. They hold these secret trials, and it's bad enough that pretty much you're guaranteed guilty, but they don't even bother presenting evidence. Because the state says you're guilty, you're literally guilty. I mean, there's say what you will about our government or other governments. There's no way that you have a secret trial with no lawyer and no evidence needs to be presented. And the judge goes, well, if you say he's guilty, I guess he's guilty. It's horrific. Yeah, but it's not secret trial like FISA, because what happens with FISA is actual evidence is presented. This is no evidence is presented. Even in secret, they will not present any evidence. They will simply say, Your Honor, he's a spy. And the court says, oh, well, if he's a spy, he gets 20 years. That's it. So let me find you a little more here. President Biden was asked today in response to a Wall Street Journal editorial, writing about their own reporter, of course. Thank you, Bonnie, for the pause there. Writing about the Wall Street Journal reporter, and the Wall Street Journal editorial asked or suggested that Biden kick out the Russian ambassador and kick out all the Russian, journalists. By the way, Russia's a dictatorship. There are no Russian journalists. The actual Russian journalists have fled the country, or they're in jail, or they're dead. The people who work here in the United States are Russian spies. They're agents of the Russian government. They're not journalists. In any case, Biden gets asked about that today and says, would you consider kicking out the Russian journalists? And he says, not at this point. Now, here's my problem. And this is something where I'm going to say, I think it's my concern here is political, and it's also practical. On a practical level, we need to figure out what our response is going to be to this. I worry that Biden's background in foreign policy, which goes back decades, he is a foreign policy expert. He was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee forever. It reminds me of people, basically, okay, I've worked for the U.S. government. I've worked in politics in Washington for over 30 years. I studied it in graduate school at Georgetown, et cetera. There's something that happens with people working in government agencies. And actually, businesses are probably this way too. Certainly nonprofits, charities, NGOs. Each institution sort of takes on a culture, right? And for example, the State Department will be more prone, our foreign ministry, the foreign ministry will be more prone towards practicing diplomacy. The Pentagon will be more prone to finding solutions that involve the military. And it's sort of like different practices of medicine, right? The neurologist is going to start thinking of problems of your nerves. The cancer specialist says maybe it's cancer. The brain guy says it could be your brain, right? Well, Biden, I fear, has thank you, Danke Shane, for that, and Paul LSWC for the balloons. I think Biden is unfortunately been doing diplomacy for too long with his foreign policy approach, I think, has been diplomatic. That can be very useful. Sometimes you need diplomacy, but I think he's a little too diplomatic. I think Biden likes to cut deals, and I think Biden is always thinking of how to cut deals. Now, that's not always a bad thing. I am absolutely not somebody who gets critical of compromise. I think sometimes people on the political right and left, the extremes, get very upset at, we shouldn't compromise. Well, you shouldn't compromise at the beginning. At the end, maybe you should compromise. So I can deal with that. But at the beginning of negotiations, you don't compromise. I'm not convinced Biden knows how to do much else other than compromise. And I mean, I'm being harsh, and I've said before, I think he's done a great job to the tune of a B plus, not an A in American, in American grading. So in France, that might be a 13, 14 instead of a 16, because he's done great in terms of giving the support for Ukraine, but he's hedging his bets because he doesn't want to piss off Putin, because he thinks we should have negotiations instead. So we're not giving Ukraine everything they need, and the stuff that they did need that we gave them, like tanks, we waited a year, right? All that kind of stuff, right? And now we're going to have to wait another year for our tanks to arrive. Everything's slow, right? Take it back to this. I'm not sure what Biden's doing right now. I think and this is, by the way, interesting. I think he thinks he's got to find a way to get this guy released. And I'm going to put out something. I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again. I was saying this on Twitter. I'm not sure it's the responsibility of the U.S. government to get this reporter released. You got a problem here. Brittany Griner was bad enough, okay? Brittany Griner at least went to Russia before the invasion, at least. So, okay. Now, she went a week before the invasion, which was pretty idiotic. I'm sorry. Everyone knew the U.S. government was saying Russia's about to invade. You went to Russia right before they invaded one of our neighbors when clearly we were interested in defending that neighbor. That's pretty stupid. She went because she wanted money. I'm not sympathetic to that, okay? She was already a top women's basketball player making money here. She wanted to make more money. She then goes and brings hashish with her little smoking thing, whatever the hell it was. That was really stupid too. I don't buy that it was a mistake. I mean, I think she was being stupid. Midnight Express, we were talking about yesterday. Thanks for the hat and mustache, Setterman. Nonetheless, I get in the end why we had to help get her out of there. She's a woman. She's a lesbian. I mean, she's black. The Russians would have they sent her to a hard labor camp. They would have killed this woman. Okay. I get it. Nonetheless, we released a horrific man in exchange for her, Victor Bout. He is an arms dealer. He is a man who sells arms to terrorists. He's a horrific man. He's merchant of death, they call him. I mean, horrific man that we had to exchange for a basketball player, but we did. After that, I had said, nobody should be going to Russia, even if you agree. And I said in the end, okay, I support getting her released, even though I'm not happy about it, right? Thank you, user 822. But I said at the time, nobody else goes to Russia. Anybody who goes to Russia or stays in Russia, unless you are working for the U.S. government, anybody else who goes there should have to, should leave. And if you decide to stay in Russia, whether it's for work or fun or whatever, and you are not working for the U.S. government, if you get kidnapped, you're on your own. Well, the U.S. media thought they were going to be cute, and they left Russia for a few months after the invasion, and then they all came back. And what happened? They all came back, and one of the reporters got taken. And while I am very sympathetic for this guy, no, I'm sorry. What are we going to do? We're going to release another mass murderer for this guy? We're going to release another super spy for a Wall Street Journal reporter? And by the way, why do you think this guy got taken? This guy got taken because we paid the ransom when they kidnapped Brittany Griner. That's why this guy got taken. He got taken because we paid the ransom. Well, we're going to negotiate for this guy now, and we're going to pay the ransom again for this next one. And you know what that's going to do? It means the Russians are going to take even more Americans in the future. So I'm not really thrilled about this. I'm not really thrilled about this, about where we are. I'm not thrilled. And here's where I'm going to get political now. Here's where the political comes in. To be an effective leader, you've got to think of the politics too. You guys may not like it, but nonetheless, this is the way politics works. For Biden to be effective, he has to be reelected. I mean, if you're thinking from his perspective, right? For Biden to be effective, the American people have to be on his side. The American people have to agree with him. Thank you, Phoenix, for the enjoy music. And who was the feather flock? Annie for the feathers. The American people have to be on his side. Well, for the American people have to be on his side, he's got to convince them he's doing the right thing. What's he planning on doing about this? I have no idea. Now, I don't want him to tell us publicly, but when he says, I'm not going to kick out the Russian journalist, I'm not going to kick out the Russian ambassador, I'm sorry, for me, that projects weakness. I feel like he's being weak, and I feel politically like he's being weak, and I think this feeds into the right wing, and this is the right wing, this is the Republican analysis of Biden. You are feeding into the sense that, and I'm very iffy on the Afghanistan withdrawal, to be honest. I think Biden screwed it up, but also let's not forget that Biden withdrew from Afghanistan because it was Donald Trump's deal. Donald Trump brokered the deal. Donald Trump removed most of our troops, and Biden removed the remaining couple thousand of our troops. But most of the troops were removed by Donald Trump in the last year. Okay. I still think Biden screwed up at the end, but nonetheless, both of them screwed up. Nonetheless, the Republicans have put out the perception that Afghanistan was a disaster. It showed how weak Biden was. Once again, I think he's making it look like he's weak again. And politically, you've got to worry about that. You can't remove it from the decision making. He's got to worry about how he appears. And by the way, one of the concerns about how you appear is also what Putin is going to do next. If Putin perceives, thank you, Joe, for the paper crane. If Putin perceives that Biden is weak, that Biden will not react strong, that Biden, by the way, is always worried about escalation. He's always worried about making Putin angry, because if Putin's angry, he may use nuclear weapons. Right? From the beginning of the war, Biden's been saying that. Well, again, I've told you guys time and again, if I'm Vladimir Putin, I'm going to do the craziest stuff possible to try to scare you and to try to get you to back down. Anyway, this is not good. I think he comes across this week. I know the Biden fans out there all get upset, but you know what? I talk about Trump a hell of a lot more than I talk about Biden on the show. So, I as I told you, I will be, thank you, Phoenix, for that. I will always try to be objective. I will always be honest with you guys. And, honestly, Trump is far worse, but that doesn't excuse Biden screwing up. I'm sorry. That's not the way we do. It's not the way we play this game. We don't play foreign policy matters of life and death by saying our guy keeps screwing up, but the other guy would have been worse. That is not how you make policy. So in any case, all right, let me move on here. So the Russian Foreign Ministry reacted today to Biden saying publicly that he was not happy with what they did. And I want to read you this quote from the Russian Foreign Ministry, because they're just out of their minds. The Russian Foreign Ministry has warned the U.S. will, quote, reap the whirlwind. Remember, I've told you before how the Russians have like nobody working for them who actually speaks English? It's crazy. The Russian Foreign Ministry warned that the U.S. will, quote, reap the whirlwind if it continues. I don't even know what that means. If it continues to make threats over the arrest of a U.S. reporter. So the Russians are saying that if we keep complaining because they kidnapped our reporter yesterday, an innocent guy, there's going to be consequences. First of all, they're the biggest freaking victims on the planet. I mean, they really are. And that's part of the problem, what we're dealing with. We are dealing with massive ego, and we're dealing with massive victimhood. And all these guys understand is being strong. But it's anyway. Okay, Bakhmut. Let me talk about Bakhmut a little bit. So Bakhmut, we know, hang on, I'm going to show you the map here. Yes, reap the whirlwind is a biblical phrase. Spaniadors is saying on TikTok, it's I was reading, it is a quote that Putin likes to use because it's the longer phrase is something like, he who sows something will reap the whirlwind. So like basically if you're acting badly, bad stuff will come back to you. So like sowing as in planting. So in other words, if you're planting in the garden and you're doing bad stuff that you're planting, bad stuff will grow back at you, is the idea, right? So anyway, yeah, it's just, these people again, any case. All right. So Bakhmut, we've talked about before. Bakhmut is Ukrainian town over here. The Russians have been trying for 8 months. 8 months to take this town. They have not succeeded. They've got like 65% of the town they control. Well, pretty much the battle for Bakhmut has been Russian fighters. Excuse me, we know it's been Russian fighters, but it's been Wagner Group. Wagner Group is the Russian mercenary group, the soldiers for hire, that's run by that billionaire, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who really doesn't seem to like Putin and keeps getting himself into trouble. Listen to this. So this was from Sky News. Ian Stubbs, a UK military advisor, estimated 30,000 Russian fighters have been killed or wounded in their attempt to capture Bakhmut. Okay? It is 25 kilometers of territory. It's a town of like 60,000 people. Now it's only a couple thousand people because they've all left. The town's been destroyed. But it's a town of 60,000 people. It does not matter at all. This is a useless city. No offense to the Ukrainians. I don't mean it's a bad town. But I mean, if you're thinking militarily and thinking strategically, Bakhmut does not matter. Nonetheless, the Russians have been spending 8 months trying to get Bakhmut. They lost 30,000 Russian troops. Now, the estimate is that the Russians have lost a total of 220,000 troops. And we're talking combined killed and injured. Okay? Killed and injured, 220,000. 30,000 means you're talking 12, 13% of that total is from one little town that doesn't matter, is what's important here. The town doesn't matter, and they've lost 15% of their troops here. Now, but it gets even better. Wagner only had 50,000 men in Ukraine. As of December, the U.S. said that the Wagner Group had 50,000 men in Ukraine, okay? If 30,000 were killed or injured, it means they've got around 20,000 left, 20 to 25,000 left. That's the vast majority. The vast majority of their men were sent to Bakhmut. They lost a huge portion of their men. I mean, they've lost almost 2/3 of their men in Ukraine. I mean, that's a hell of a lot to lose. And by the way, we know that Putin has been basically trying to lessen the power of this Prigozhin, the billionaire who runs this mercenary group. He's so pissed off Putin that Putin started just throwing more and more of his men at this town to basically get them killed, which again is insane because that's not how you make military strategy. You know, it's not though, actually. Sorry, but Mia's bringing up a point on TikTok. It's worth a little bit. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but saying it does have value if you're going after Kramatorsk, but it really doesn't. Here's why. I remember this from my research the other day. So you've got Bakhmut. We're talking why Bakhmut doesn't matter. Bakhmut's over here. And thank you, who was that? Danke Shane for the superpower. Bakhmut's over here. Next up is going after Kramatorsk. Okay. I'm forgetting. It's not. I'm forgetting the next one up. Starts with. It's not Satove. Anyway, I'm forgetting the town that's up here. There's another town north of here with an S, north of Kramatorsk. Is the Sloviansk? Maybe it's Sloviansk. I'm forgetting what's up here. Anyway, there's another town up here. Here's the problem. In order to get from Bakhmut to Kramatorsk, there's two main ways. It might be Sloviansk, I think. There's two main ways. One, you go east. There's two main roads. You go east and then up. The other is to go kind of northwest, straight up. The problem is the Russians. So the point here would be, oh yeah, maybe the Russians are taking Bakhmut because they're looking at it as a stepping stone to go further up to Kramatorsk and then Sloviansk and then further north, right? The problem is the Russians don't have enough troops to hit both of those roads. So they either would have to come this way or that way. Well, first of all, both roads are going uphill. So the Ukrainians would be able to basically protect themselves. Like, in other words, imagine you're on a mountaintop or a hilltop and somebody's coming up. You're hiding behind stuff and you just keep shooting at them. So the Ukrainians would be able to destroy the Russian troops that are coming up. Second of all, the kind of troops that Russia has in Bakhmut are the kind of troops that they're using for doing a full frontal assault. It's not the same kind of troops you would use for going basically up to another city through farmland and everything else. Another problem is the weather and everything else. The fact that they'd have to use the roads and they can't use the fields. By using the roads, they're in the open. I'm trying to think. There was a bunch of other stuff. Basically, bottom line, the military experts were saying, this was on Sky News, I think it was Michael Clark, was that it is so disadvantageous to attack Kramatorsk, which is what you want to go at next. So you're right about that on TikTok. It is what you want to go at next. It's so disadvantageous from Bakhmut. You would have to attack either from the south or the north. You would not do it from over here in sort of the east southeast. You would do it from here or here, and therefore you wouldn't do it from Bakhmut. So eventually, if you want to capture all of that region in the east, of course, eventually you've got to get Bakhmut, right? I mean, because you wouldn't own the entire region. But the idea of it being the next step to going to Kramatorsk or the other important cities, it's not. It's not at all. So no, it was just incredibly stupid of them to do this. All right, let me look. Let me do a quick little pitch for the Discord, and then we got a couple other stories, and then we'll go here. 1 second here. So I do a Discord as well. It's discord.aravosis.com. You can find the link in my profile on TikTok. You can find the link via aravosis.com there. In a nutshell, it's kind of a cool community. It takes a little bit getting used to because I think it's very techy in terms of the way it was designed. But it's a fun community. We hang out, we chat about stuff. We've been talking about the Ukraine news all day there. We've also people talking about sports, people talking about recipes, about pets, about Iran, you name it. But we do have a very active group talking about Ukraine throughout the day there. It's free. You also can subscribe and become a paying member. If you become a paying member, you do that via the Patreon, and then you link the two. Paying member gives you a number of benefits, including being able to join us tomorrow morning for the coffee talk we do every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. We do it on the Discord. You'll see in the left-hand column at the top, it says $5 a week coffee talk. That's where I'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. But we also do a number of auctions, I was saying, and the auctions are cool because I've been doing auctions to help support my work, because I do this for free, as I said, but also in order to support Ukraine. And we've been taking 50% of the auction revenues from all the Ukrainian stuff we've been auctioning. I've been getting really cool stuff from Ukraine and sending it back to Ukraine. Now, just to show you a couple things, I like to show you guys this stuff because I think it's fun anyway, but it's important. The latest thing I've got is very cool Ukrainian t-shirt with Patron, the dog. He's a Jack Russell Terrier who is famous in Ukraine for hunting like over 100 bombs in the ground, like mines, unexploded ordnance, things like that. And super famous, met a number of heads of state, super famous in Ukraine. And it's an official t-shirt they did of him where he's fishing. I'm not going to open the whole t-shirt, but he's fishing for mines in the water, which is really cute. So we're auctioning this one off, which is really cute. I've got a piece of a Russian fighter jet, totally cool, that was shot down over Ukraine in March. I've got the whole story. I did a bunch of research on this and have like a whole couple pages of research on the fighter jet, on the pilot. The pilot was captured. He then was turned, allegedly, according to the Ukrainians, he was turned and now is working for the Ukrainians. That's what they say. But it's really cool. It's a titanium piece of the plane, still has the rivet in it, which is kind of cool. You can see the rivet. This, I always like to, because it's hard to hear. It's super light and crazy strong. It's the weirdest thing. And then the other, number of other stuff. But the other thing is I dug up another piece of the Berlin Wall that I had. This is a pretty good sized piece. The only downside is it doesn't have paint on it. It was a long story there, but I was in Berlin in December of 1989, early December 3rd. And the wall had just been opened up. It was still there. The East Germans were still on top of the wall with their machine guns. It was a very scary time, but thousands of people were at the wall picking at it. And I was one of them at like 2 a.m. Very difficult to get, because it's basically like, imagine trying to break away a piece of a sidewalk. It's impossible. It's cement. But long story short, I was able to break some pieces. Very hard to get pieces with color on them, and very hard to get thick pieces, but I was able to get this piece. It doesn't have color, unfortunately, but it's a cool piece nonetheless. Couple rocks in person. You'd have to see it in person. It's actually quite a pretty piece, but it's neat because it's a pretty good size. I mean, you can see here in front of my face, you can see how big it is. No color on it, but it's a pretty cool size. So I'm auctioning this thing off too, and I've got a whole fact sheet I did on it to basically prove it's real, because that's important. It's concrete. Yeah, it's concrete. It's here, I'll show you again closely. It's concrete. The wall was concrete. Remember the wall. I've also got maybe I'll show you at the end of the show. I've got my big rebar that I broke. The way I broke this stuff off the wall was sorry. Thank you, Danke Shane, for that. And who is, oh, and Wilson or Will Carlson, excuse me. Thank you for those. There was a huge piece of rebar that's like, I mean, literally like this big. It's like 3 feet tall that was sticking out of the wall. And I just had this crazy idea. And I said, maybe I can bend it to break some pieces off, because how do you break concrete? Bent it, and some little pieces came off like that piece. As I was doing it, I noticed it was getting hot, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. So I started for 20 minutes, and I've got a picture of it. For 20 minutes, actually, I'll show you the picture because the piece is hard to get. Um, So for 20 minutes, I was bending this huge piece of rebar. Here, you can see this is me in 1989. You can see the piece in my hands. It's a huge piece of like iron or steel, really big, and I was just bending it back and forth, and it was breaking the pieces of the wall off. Here, I'll get really close. You can see. So you see the piece of metal. Well, as I'm bending it, it was starting to. I was young. It was 1989. It was 34 years ago. Um, as I'm bending it, the metal's getting hot. So I thought, could I break this? Well, I'm bending it for 20 minutes. It finally got so hot and the bending back and forth that it broke. So I now have that huge piece of metal. It's over by my wall. I'm not going to get it right now, but it was able to break off several pieces. Now, the nicest piece, one of the nicest pieces, but I'm keeping this one. This is one of the pieces that broke off, and it's nicer because it's big, but it also has the color on it. Actually, what's really cool too, it has the slit on the back from where the rebar was. You can see it going up and down there. I'll show you guys. See, the marks on the back is where the metal bar was going through. And the front, you'll see, this is a nice one because of the color, but they're very hard to get. They were just very difficult to get this big. Any case, so that's why this piece does not have color, but it's cool. It's cool. You look so different. It's been 35 years. You always look different after 35 years. What do you do, Eris? All right, girl. So Slovak Prime Minister Edward Heger. Oops, sorry. Thank you there for the gift. I was saying, so Discord. Yeah, so go check out the Discord. As I said, the 50% of the proceeds from those things will go to Ukraine, and 50% will go to support my work, since I'm doing this for free. So I very much appreciate it. The master of bending steel. Yes, exactly. Oh, do you, Peter? Yeah, I love this stuff. I love that. To me, like, I like the history of stuff. I like dinosaurs and things like that too. But I also like pieces of like archaeology, pieces of man-made or man-worked things. That fact that like some East German, horrible human being made this, and the number of people who died trying to get over the wall, just the history of it, holding it to me. I've always something. I would not sell that piece. No. I've got two other really nice pieces, and I'm keeping the nice pieces because it's such a nice. Oh, okay. So go enjoy your birthday. They're such nice pieces, and I know they're real, which is nice. I worry about going online. Thank you, Dawn. I worry about going online and buying stuff because who the hell knows if it's real? Like, and I'm keeping, and my nephew's inheriting it all. He's the only family member who likes this stuff. Thank you hey, Dakota. He's the only family member who's like into this stuff. So I've already told him, I'm like, when I die, you'll get everything. And he's like, he was visiting once, went through everything, was like, oh my God, I love this stuff. But it's hard because people aren't, you're either into this stuff or you're not. I love this stuff. And again, to me, there's something cosmic. I don't even know what to call it. Being able to hold these things in your hand, it's just something so. Yuri Geller. Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's very funny. All right, hold on. I will show you the big piece because it is pretty cool. And you guys are enjoying the talk anyway. Hold on. Boom. That's the big piece. That's the bar. Is that freaking cool? Moving it so you can like see. It's hard to tell. You can see here. You can see sort of with the light behind me. I mean, it's insane. This thing. Is that freaking cool? Like, I love this thing. It's getting a little rusty, which is worrying me, but I freaking love this. It is the most unique, weird souvenir of the Berlin Wall, right? And yeah, that piece I'll never sell. That piece I will. And the good thing was because I was flying with the U.S. government, I was able to bring it on the military plane that we came back with. So we were flying with the U.S. military. So I got on the plane and I'm carrying my luggage and I'm carrying this thing in my hand. And again, thank God it was a U.S. military flight, because imagine a regular plane carrying a piercing piece of metal on. And literally everybody looked at me and went, first, everyone got confused because it was all senators and staff and some military people. Everyone first got confused. And then, oh, thank you, Bonnie, for that. First got confused. And then you could see their faces go, because they realized you grabbed that from the wall. And then I was the hit of the plane because I'd gotten that thing. It's so cool. It's so cool. Anyway, like I said, I love this stuff. To me, it's just so cool. I know I'm still trying to figure out how to display it. It's not easy. I've been trying to figure that out forever. I've had that thing for 30 plus years and I still haven't figured out how to display it correctly. Because people have said hang it, but I'm a little afraid of it, like Damien in the what is it? Not The Exorcist, the other one. Like it kind of coming through and killing a guest. Would not be good. The Omen, like the Omen, and the thing's gonna come down off my ceiling and kill somebody. But I've got to figure out how to do it. I actually did buy some metal clamps that you can screw into the wall, and I thought maybe just holding it in the wall. I wish I don't have a fireplace. Yeah, the Damocles sword, exactly. But I've got to figure out. Actually, framing it is what some other folks said. They said basically getting one of those. What do you call the boxes? The boxes that are like this tall, a frame box that's kind of maybe this tall against the wall, and just putting it in there. A shadow box, but a shadow box without a cover on it, just so that it gives like some shape to it or whatever. We're going to see. I'm going to try to go to Michael's. I'm not going to bring it with, but go to Michael's and see if there's something, because I've got to find some way of framing it. It's ridiculous that I haven't framed it, because I just love this kind of stuff. I mean, to me, it's actually what one friend, we will get back to the news in a second. What one friend had recommended, which was interesting. He said, you could make cement and make like a cement square on the bottom and stick it in so it's standing up. Because he was thinking it looking kind of retro, not retro, but kind of a diesel or whatever you want to call it. My only concern with that was I just don't want to put part of it hidden in cement. You know what I mean? Like it just worries me, So I don't know. Is it possible? Yes. Sorry, Bash. Sorry. Okay. Any case. I've got the picture. And the thing is, I've got to see if I kept the negatives. Oh God, I hope I still kept the negative, because I could always blow the picture up and put it next to, I would put the small picture next to it anyway. I could do a blown up picture and put it next to it too, potentially. Guitar stand. Yeah. I'm just not sure. The cement thing is pretty cool. The problem is I just don't like the idea of it being in cement. I worry that would be, I've almost ruined it by putting part of it in cement. I'd almost love to put it in something that could be removed from, but a cement block would be cool, because even just the way it would stand up or whatever. Resin, but can resin, well, you know what, Callum, talk to me afterwards about that. I just would love something that I could eventually, in other words, that I don't destroy. Actually, consulting with a museum, I may do that, because I've called museums before on stuff like this, and I may do that. I could always ask the Smithsonian. I'd have to think of who to ask, but one of their people, and say, like, what would you do to display something like this? Pottery mold instead of cement. I know it's like almost something that would stick, because also it would look kind of cool. Like that thing. I've got a really big apartment too. I'm not a big apartment, but I've got tall ceilings, and it's a loft. So it could look cool with something that looked like that standing up in a corner, potentially. I don't know. All right, let me keep going here, guys. So, I was just saying really quick, a few more other stories, and then we'll keep doing these. The Slovak Prime Minister, the Slovenian Prime Minister, and the Croatian Prime Minister all arrived in Kyiv today to honor the anniversary of the liberation of Bucha that we were talking about. Viktor Orban is being a jerk in Hungary. I don't want to talk too much about this. He's the idiot wannabe dictator in Hungary, but he said, listen to this. Listen. This kind of garbage. He's a super pro Putin guy. Real quick. Bash Brannigan was asking, is it possible to visit Ukraine? Absolutely. You cannot fly into Ukraine because of the war. Typically, you would have to fly into like Romania or or Poland, and then either drive or take a bus or whatever from there. But people are still visiting Ukraine. You have to keep in mind that, it's not entirely safe. Vlad was, actually, I want to show you this. Vlad sent me a picture yesterday. Let me show you. His parents live north of Kharkiv. Kharkiv is the second largest Ukrainian town here in the Northeast. So it's right by the Russian border, like 25 miles from the Russian border. His parents are just a little north of there. And he sent me, let me show you this really quick, yesterday, and said, my father found this near his house. Okay. You see the thing in the ground. All right. In the bottom. There, you see the thing. You can see like the countryside. You see the thing in the bottom on the ground. That is, oh, thank you, Danny. Danny just pledged on Patreon. Thank you. That was very sweet of you. I appreciate that. That is, and I'm going to show you a picture of what it is, even though this picture is not of that. This is the picture of the same thing. Okay. This is the picture of the same thing. It's a Russian Oregon rocket that they fired. That's the size of the thing. Now, this is a picture of a similar rocket, so to speak, meaning it's not the rocket in the ground. But I mean, look at the size of this crazy thing. And it's in the ground at Vlad's dad's place, and just a little bit of it sticking out of the ground, and it hasn't blown up, so it's still active. So they're trying to get people to come out so somebody can deactivate the damn thing. The problem is that's the kind of thing you're dealing with. And, he's north of Kharkiv, where the Russians aren't right now. The Russians aren't fighting, but they keep shooting. So, it's scary. But you can go. I mean, we know, I'm trying to think, what do you call yourself here? Me and You Ukraine has been doing a lot of humanitarian work and bringing humanitarian supplies to Ukraine himself. So people are still doing that. So you can. I definitely plan on going. I was going to go with some of who was it? John, one of the guys on TikTok, YouTube, that had invited me to go for some humanitarian run he was making last November, but things started getting so bad with Putin bombing everywhere that I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do it. Oh, thank you, Patricia. That was sweet of you. Thank you. I saw that. Thank you for PayPal. I just I didn't feel safe doing it. So I'm holding off for right now, but I'm dying to go to Ukraine. Are you kidding me? And I'd studied Russian for a year, and I started studying some Ukrainian, but the Ukrainian got me so, my Russian is very bad. I mean, I remember sentences. Like I could say, я говорю немного по-русски. Trying to learn that stuff in Ukrainian confused the hell out of me. It was just confusing. Everything's different. Like, as much as the languages are similar, everything's different. So I finally gave up, and I've got to start. I was trying to brush up on even though the Russians drive me crazy, I was trying to brush up on my Russian again, because at least I could use it in Ukraine, even though, and apologize, извините. I'm American. Was it, я американец. Не говорю, what would you say? По-украински? Maybe? I'm not sure how to even say Ukrainian, but I mean, they'd understand, but I'm dying to go to Ukraine, and hopefully be able to study a little bit. I was using Duolingo. Yeah. Hopefully be able to get a little bit. Well, and the Google Translate can help a lot. My nephew tried to use it in Greece, though. Google Translate still confuses people. The simultaneous translation, if you're not used to it, they don't know how to do it. Yeah. Carla, Carl or Carla. It's confusing, though. I'm getting very confused trying to study Ukrainian, even though I'd love to, unless I started from scratch. Maybe if I started from scratch, I'd be okay, on Duolingo, maybe. Anyway, let me, last little, Erdogan, whatever. Erdogan is basically talking about nuclear war. The president or the prime minister of Hungary. He's trying to help Putin. And saying, oh my God, we've got to have a ceasefire now because there's going to be a nuclear war and the whole world's going to be involved. It's what Putin wants to have happen. Putin wants to have a ceasefire, because what a ceasefire does is it locks in the current situation, and it locks basically Russia in with all the land that it's already stolen from Ukraine. I didn't say aloud. You guys are all. Oh, and thank you, Soren. Sorry, I'm looking back here really quick. I appreciate that. Up. Oh, Steven's funny. Steven's 18 minutes behind on the feed. Hang on. Yep, Smithsonian. I've got to talk to somebody at Smithsonian. You're right about that. Elise. I will call them and see if they've got advice too. Sorry, real quick here. And I'm seeing a couple of you, Mundashi and Drake, giving suggestions. I will look at that later on and see what the suggestion was for how to put my thing in the ground. And then finally, last little story. A Pentagon spokesman said today or yesterday that 65 Ukrainian soldiers have completed training on the Patriot air defense system and are now returned to Europe. So that's really good too. So the Ukrainians, the Patriot defense system is the system to shoot down incoming missiles and planes and things like that. So that's really good. All right, let's do more questions here. Went a little long tonight, but that's okay. Thank you, Hedge, for that. I'm putting on my fan here because I'm getting warm in here now. 1 second here. Put on my fan. Here we go. There we go. All right. So yeah, TikTok questions. The rest of you feel free. Let me jump on my app here. TikTok questions. So remember, to TikTok, you can submit the questions via the Q&A link in my profile. The rest of you obviously can use the, James Vasquez, I feel bad about that. Yeah. And Nazar, I even sent him money at the beginning. I don't understand enough about what's going on with it. I read the New York Times story. I've read a lot of it. I just don't fully understand. Part of it feels to me a dog shirt. Well, it depends what you mean by this dog shirt. I'm auctioning it off on the Discord. Thank you for the mariachi hat, Carla. I'm auctioning the patron dog. You mean? Yeah. Sorry, I'm dropping as I do this, I'm dropping my Berlin wall piece. That'd be nice to break. The patron dog. So I'm auctioning these off on the Discord. So you go over the Discord, discord.aravosis.com. Click yes on the README or whatever, and then you scroll down to the auctions, and it's in the auction. So. Yep. Oh, hey, Jay. Yeah, I heard that. So it's raining in Chicago is getting nasty nasty tornadoes today, and tomorrow it's snowing, which is crazy. But yeah, so I called Mom, gave her the heads up. My nephew's there too, so he's one of the other nephews, so he's aware and paying attention, which is good. When do you think the A1 tanks will be on the battlefield, Victor? The latest the U.S. was saying, these are the U.S. tanks. The latest the U.S. was saying was the tanks wouldn't arrive for like 8 to 10 months. They were saying the fall. The fall is the latest. Now, the fall would be pretty good because honestly, they weren't thinking they were going to arrive until Christmas. So let's hope that's the case. But even so, thank you, Victor. Even so, that's quite a delay. Not arriving till fall. I'm just not up on the James Vasquez thing. I will say this. There's a part of me when I read the James Vasquez story. So this is a guy who'd been fundraising for Ukraine and looks like he might have been playing some games. The thing that I don't like is there's a feeling of piling on that I did not like. A lot of the criticism I was reading almost sounded like jealousy. And I didn't like that. The New York Times thing got into it, but it just felt like people were upset that he was doing videos showing himself. I'm like, who cares? I don't care that he was doing videos showing himself. He was trying to raise money. I mean, if you're trying to raise money, you do videos going, here I am in Ukraine, help us out, right? There just something felt petty about the criticism. Now, that doesn't mean maybe he did do something wrong with the money. I don't know. But in life, I have found, in politics especially, when people criticize something and they use a very weak reason to criticize, it makes me question all the other reasons they give, right? There was a woman, long story, but this was a woman who'd written a piece for like Teen Vogue last year or a year and a half ago. Remember, she was criticizing, was it Aziz Ansari or whatever, the comedian, because she had a date with him and she didn't like him. And they met at a party, decide to go out. She goes back to his apartment. They get naked and decide to give each other naked massages. And she said she didn't want to have sex, but he kept saying, come on. And then finally he said, okay, can we just massage each other naked for a while? And she said, okay. I mean, the story's crazy, right? And I mean, it was a ridiculous story. Well, a lot of the women I asked read it and said the woman's crazy. Well, one of the complaints she made was we went to a restaurant and he ordered wine for me. He just ordered a bottle of wine and didn't ask me which color I wanted. And I'm like, okay, but give me a break. You know what I mean? I mean, fair enough. But I mean, you could start by saying, give us a whatever. It just my point here, tying it back to this thing with Vasquez is, I feel like when somebody brings up a really lousy explanation for something, like saying, and then he didn't do this, it makes me question all the other reasons they're giving, because I'm starting to think the entire thing is the criticism is based for personal reasons and not for a real reason. Anyway, so I don't know enough. Maybe there's both there with the Vasquez story, but as I said, I got a bad taste from the criticism. It felt like people were just jealous and didn't like him. But who knows? Maybe he did not channel the money he was supposed to, that's entirely possible. So, Ben, thoughts on Russia taking over the presidency of the United Nations Security Council, which happens tomorrow. Ironic how it's happening on April Fool's Day. And sorry for mentioning the UN exactly. Yes, it's happening tomorrow on April Fool's Day. Ironically, I don't know why I thought the presidency of the Security Council was 6 months. I must be confusing it with something else. But I read today that it's only 1 month. And I thought for sure it used to be 6 months. So maybe something changed, or maybe I'm confusing things here. In any case, Russia takes over the UN Security Council tomorrow. Yes, it's a joke. Yes, it's awful. It's yeah, Miguel, exactly. It's that kind of thing, right? It's awful. The UN, I don't think, is terribly effective anyway. Thank you, Carmel, for the butterflies there. But it's the UN. I mean, what do you do? Russia's part of the Security Council. I just don't know what you do. It's too bad. But thank you, Magical Photo. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not even sure what to say about it. It's unfortunate, because so much of the UN, I think, is this weird thing of all these different, I mean, to some degree, I get it, because the UN is all these different countries coming together. And, even Libya's Muammar Gaddafi was there. Right? Like, I mean, Saddam Hussein could be there. It was like, it's supposed to be everybody coming together, even if we don't, it's like the Olympics. It's supposed to be everybody coming together, even if we don't like everybody. Like, in principle, I get it. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. I get it. But there's something really gross about Putin committing genocide and now being a war criminal, and he's overseeing the UN Security Council. It's gross. But you better believe that if he tries to do anything, the US will just keep vetoing it, which is good. So there is that. It is a ceremonial post. Look, the Russians are going to use it for propaganda purposes and all of that. Of course they will, a few more questions here. One moment. I have no idea what your question means, Magical Photo. So you said this is not that, but that has to be this, so this must be that. Thoughts? I don't know what that means. I have no idea. I'm sorry, but I have no idea what that means. I did not hear about this. Sorry. Someone's asking about Russia, Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, talking about Russian Federation big shots asking for deals with Ukraine because they're afraid for their lives and their families' lives. I didn't hear anything about that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that. Oh, I did see that. Yeah, Andy is saying over on YouTube, I saw a great story on how good the Ukrainians were at training on the Challenger 2 tanks and how impressed the UK was. I saw the same thing. Yeah, the Brits were saying the Ukrainians did just an amazing job of the training on the tanks, which is great. Yeah. Let me see, pull up more TikTok stuff here. Did you hear the claim from a Russian actress saying the U.S. special military operation started in 2020 and that COVID was our bioweapon? Wow. Actress said that the COVID vaccines are helping the HIMARS find their targets, as the vaccine all have nanotech to tell HIMARS systems where to fire. It's true. Don't tell anybody. Thank you, Paul Gray. I appreciate that. I even snorted on that one. Thank you, Paul Gray. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's just like something wrong with these people. There really is. Let me see here. Okay, actually, that's funny. You were asking the same thing. Chris T was asking about Russia and the Security Council. Okay, we answered that. Is it possible to remove Russia from the UN councils? I don't know. I don't know. I actually, I don't know whether you would need a majority of the UN to do it. But it would be, I mean, first of all, the US probably doesn't want to establish the precedent because we don't want ourselves kicked off of it if one of our presidents lies and gets us into a war, for example, right? So, there's that issue. But I don't know. But I don't think it's going to happen because we'd be worried about them kicking us off, or the Brits would worry about the same thing. The developing countries get together and decide to go after us, Yeah, I did see this. This was weird. So Copies is mentioning, and this was kind of a weird story. And I saw this earlier today, I think. Hungary was added to the list of enemies of Russia a few days back. It was kind of funny to hear our foreign minister in the Czech Republic telling them, "Welcome aboard, friends." I don't know. I think that was because the Hungarian parliament finally voted in favor of letting Finland join NATO. So Putin got upset, and now they're saying Hungary's, evil. Blah, 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 blah. But then you saw Orban, the prime minister of Hungary, turn around and then support the ceasefire and all this kind of garbage. So he's still doing Putin's bidding, probably doing it because of that, actually. Well, that's the, yeah. So 6evo, on the Russians reap the whirlpool, or the whirlpool threat, or whatever, whirlwind, or whatever the heck it was. That we talked about that at the beginning of the show. So the Russians basically, in response to the U.S. getting upset that Russia kidnapped one of our reporters, the reporter for the Wall Street Journal, the Russians then threatened us to stop complaining about the fact that they kidnapped our reporter. I mean, it was like crazy, ridiculous thing, right? Stop complaining that we kidnapped your guy. Like, give me a break. And they made this quote about, they warned the U.S. will reap the whirlwind if we don't stop talking about it. And we were talking about that it's some kind of a biblical quote. And the idea, it starts with something like, you sow. Oh, we can try to pull it up while we're talking. Yeah, reap the whirlwind. I'll pull up the whole quote. It's about sowing and reaping. Reap the whirlwind. I want to see. I know what it means. I want to read the whole quote, though. Well, the quote. Okay. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. The idea is, you did something bad in the past, and now you're going to pay for it. So that's what they're kind of saying is, the U.S., you've done bad stuff all these years, and now you're paying for it. You reap what you sow. There you go. Small point just said on TikTok. That's the quote that we know that we use today. You reap what you sow. Exactly. Type 2. Yeah. So, no, I mean, it's look, as I said, the Russians are egomaniacs with an inferiority complex. So they think this is their moment in the sun. They're upset that Hungary is in NATO. Yep. They're upset that the world doesn't fear them anymore. I mean, let's face it. Not only does the world not fear them, the world thinks they're a joke now, other than their nuclear weapons. But as I said, Pakistan's got nuclear weapons too. So does North Korea. Russia only matters because they have nukes. Otherwise, they don't matter at all. Culturally, they don't matter. Militarily, their military kind of sucks. Big, but sucks. Economically, they're really bad. I mean, they're something like 1/10 the size of the European Union or something. I mean, they're crazy small economically. The other thing, the point I like to mention too is, you've got 2 million people who try to cross the U.S. border illegally every year in the South. 2 million. It's a lot. How many try to get into Russia every year? Right? Nobody tries to get into Russia. 1 million fled Russia last year. 1 million of their own citizens fled. Whereas you've got 2 million people trying to get into the United States. They ain't us. But there's a very, and they what's the word I'm looking for? Thank you, Pauline, for that. They're not just jealous. It hurts them. They're very hurt that the world doesn't look to them, that the world looks to us and doesn't look to them. Even when the world doesn't like us, the world respects us. The U.S., and frankly, NATO in general, right? Look at the NATO countries. Culturally, most of those countries, at least culturally, I mean, France is a smaller power today, but France culturally, right? Oh my God, France, right? The UK in its own way, culturally, yeah. But because the UK is still a power, nobody looks to Russia like that, and they hate it. Which also I think is part of the reason they hate this. They hate the UK too. It's a jealousy as well. They're jealous of us as well. It's really weird. It's really weird. Yeah. No, I don't know. Jingle, you're a little late here. I'm going a little late tonight, or you wouldn't even see us right now. Right, hang on a second here. For maybe a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm getting hungry too. I ate earlier, but I didn't eat enough, and now I'm getting a little bit of a food headache. It's like, ugh. I don't know what's up with that. So Kimmy is saying, I worry that too much is being said in the media about Ukraine's military plans. How will it affect their outcome having Russia know? My hope is that Patron is made in Ukraine. Now, the shirts in my store are not, of course, because the shirts in my store are from an American company called Represent. Patron, however, I'm sure it is. I looked the other day at Patron. Oh, it is. Patron, which I'm going to try to get more of them, is, here you go. See, bottom of the tag. If you speak Ukrainian, bottom of the tag says made in Ukraine or fabricated in Ukraine. You guys can see too. Well, it's hard on you can't really. Oh, there you go. You can see it a little bit. There we go at the bottom. Ukraini. What's the word there? Vigotovlena v Ukraini. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but what do you do? But anyway, well, now that I've opened the shirt, I might as well show you the whole shirt. This is the shirt we're auctioning off of Patron, which I love. On YouTube, it's washing it out a little bit, but you guys can see it well there. It's based on a Ukrainian stamp honoring him. Made in Ukraine. Yep. And I've ordered a couple more that are hopefully, I'm probably not going to have them for a few months, but I ordered a few more because they're cool. And actually, it fits really well. I even tried it on. It's a large. It actually fits me really well. I tried it on. I was like, all right, this shirt kind of looks good on me. So what do you do? But just folding this up. I'll put it away later. There we go. Oops, did I drop the bag? What did I do with Patron's bag here? Of course, now I lost it. I'll find it later. All right. Well, I dropped it or something. I'll find it later. All right, guys. You know what I'm going to do? Actually, I think let's do a wrap up here. I'm gonna do a summary of the news, and then let's get. Oh God, what are the tornadoes hitting Chicago? I see Roshan telling people to get to a safe place. Worrying me because my mom's in that area too, so not good. I know Patron's cool. Patron's cool. Little Rock, Arkansas today was horrible. They were showing the images, the videos of the tornado hitting Arkansas today. Really, really scary. Yeah. All right, guys, let me do. Yeah, Chicago's still storming. Okay, nothing bad yet. That's good. Okay, no, mom knows. She's already warned her. My nephew's there. My nephew lives with her, so he knows to sort of keep his ears open for the alarms, or I am going home. Yep. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be back in Chicago. I'll be there for a month. So I'll be doing my typical broadcast with the wood paneling behind me in Chicago as usual. Actually, mom's watching the show anyway, I think. So mom already knows what the tornadoes, we've been talking about them, but I did call her. Yes. So, okay, here we go. Quick update on the news we talked about today. Today's the 1-year anniversary of the recapture of Bucha. I did an update on Finland and all the little steps that are needed to have Finland join NATO. It looks like, even though it could happen in the next few days, we may wait until the NATO meeting on July 11th. I don't know. If I were, I'd still consider kind of getting it done now, to be honest. The New York Times says, and then I went through some details on Finland's military, how the military is very small, but they can ramp it up to a really large military within a very short period of time because they've been preparing for this for years. Finland has has the largest artillery and best equipped artillery in Europe, etc. I did an update on Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, who was kidnapped by the Russians. Biden weighed in and said he's not going to kick out any Russian diplomats or Russian reporters at this point. And I talked about sort of the politics of that, and I felt like we're looking a little weak to the Russians. Bakhmut, we talked about how 30,000, according to the British military advisor, 30,000 Russian troops have been either killed or injured fighting in Bakhmut for the last 8 months, a town in eastern Ukraine that simply does not matter. So ridiculous. The Russians have basically killed themselves for this town. And the Slovak Prime Minister, Slovenian Prime Minister, and Croatian Prime Minister arrived in Ukraine today. Viktor Orban, the wannabe dictator of Hungary, is saying there's a real danger of Ukraine becoming World War III and we need peace now. Basically, Ukraine has to give up. He's saying it for Putin. He's a big Putin fan. He's saying it for Putin. And a Pentagon spokesperson said today that 65 Ukrainian soldiers have completed training on the Patriot missile systems to defend Ukraine from incoming rockets and planes and things like that, which is very cool. All right, guys. Oh, hold on. Perfect timing. Hold on. Neighbor across the hall wants to come play with the dog in the hall. I'm like, perfect timing. All right, guys. I'm going to get going. Thank you so much. So this is perfect timing. I can go in the hall and have a drink with the neighbor. I will see you guys for Coffee Talk tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time for the paid TikTok subscribers and the paid Discord subscribers. Otherwise, I will see the rest of you Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time US. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, moderators, for everything you've been doing. I know that's a lot of fun. I know that's a lot of fun. But anyway, thank you for the gifts. And yeah, Kalisperazi, my mom. Thank you. I will tell mom, or mom's maybe seeing it depending how she's watching. She's watching on YouTube. Actually, she watches on YouTube. Yeah, the whole doggy time. Yeah, we'll see. All right, guys. But anyway, I will see you all on Monday. Otherwise, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your gifts as always. Today was fun. We got into a lot of other funny stuff like my Berlin Wall escapades, but that was kind of fun. Putting these things aside so I don't mess them up. And I will see you guys, like I said, either Monday or tomorrow in the Coffee Talks. So thank you, guys. I know mine's rusty too. I don't use it much. All right. Have a good night, guys. Burp. All right.